Thank you. Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Library of Congress. I'm JJ Harpster. I'm the head of the library's science section. And tonight, I have the pleasure and honor to introduce award-winning writer Mary Roach and Associated Press science writer Christina Larson. Mary Roach is the author of 7 best-selling works of nonfiction, and her writing has appeared in National Geographic and New York Times Magazine. She has also worked as a copy editor and journalist at the San Francisco Zoo. And according to what I found out about her while I was searching the interweb, her hobbies include bird watching, backpacking, thrift store shopping, and Scrabble. Mary writes about what makes us humans in all of our biological and sociological brilliance and absurdity and courage. Her past books covered Cadavers, the afterlife, sex, life as an astronaut, the digestive system, war, and wildlife. Mary's imagination is a special place to be, and personally, as a science enthusiast and as an avid reader, I am so grateful she's opened her imagination to all of us. She'll be talking tonight about her latest book, Replaceable You, which investigates the history and innovation of prostheses, in other words, replaceable body parts. Christina Larson, who will be interviewing Mary Roach and having a conversation, is a science writer on the Associated Press Global Health and Science team. She has reported on the environments from 5 continents. Some of the fascinating topics she has reported on includes the codependency of long-billed curlews on prairie dog colonies. So curlews are very large shorebirds, and they can eavesdrop on a prairie dog call to be forewarned about predators. But she has also reported on chimpanzees who drum with a regular rhythm when they beat on the tree trunks. And she's also reported on how picky Stone Age humans were about the rocks that they used to make tools. Now, I really love my job here at the Library of Congress, but I would really absolutely love to be Christina for just 1 year and get paid to travel the world, research, and write about chimpanzees, curlews, prairie dogs, and other cool science stuff. Please join me in welcoming Mary Roach and Christina Larson to the Library of Congress.
Hi, thank you all for being here tonight. Got a great crowd. It's a joy to be here with Mary talking about her new book, Replaceable You. This book, for those who haven't read it or are in the course of reading it now, it's a medical history, but it's also a history of science and technology. It's a cultural history about how people have responded to these new inventions when they've become available. It's at times poignant, at times completely hysterical. It is a joy to read, incredibly funny. I am a person who has a bit of a queasy stomach sometimes with medical things, but I just found it so enjoyable and so wonderful. So it is so much fun to be here with Mary.
Yay, thank you.
And with all of you. So I'm gonna be chatting with, Mary and I are gonna have a chat for about a half hour, and then we are gonna open it up to Q&A so we can hear what you've been thinking about and wanna ask Mary as well. So Mary,
yes.
Last week I was at the dentist and I was trying to be calm while he was busy drilling into my jawbone a titanium cylinder and thinking about, wow, what should I ask Mary next week? And it occurred to me that maybe this was my first replaceable body part. It was basically preparation for a dental implant. And then I was thinking, what other body parts have I replaced? And I thought, I wear contact lenses, right, on top of my faulty, very nearsighted lenses. And these things, dental implant contact lenses, that might seem very normal, almost mundane now, would have been miraculous to someone who lived 200 years ago. And Mary's book touches on a wide range of topics, but a lot of it is about things, ideas that seem kind of miraculous or far-fetched now, but maybe in 200 years will seem very ordinary and mundane, and that's what's really exciting. So I thought maybe, Mary, if it's not rude, can I start with a personal question?
Sure, absolutely. I love personal questions.
Do you have any replaced body parts that you are thinking, that you're really happy about, that you regret, or maybe even in the course of reporting this book that you replaced or thought about replacing, and how did that change your thoughts about your topic?
I have all my original parts. The eyes are not very good though, so I do have contact lenses. So that's a replaceable part.
Did you try a skin graft as part of the reporting, or a hair graft?
No, I tried. This is what I did. I was reporting on hair transplants through the ages, and one reason so I asked to have, and I'll explain why. It's not just that I'm an odd person, though that may be part of it. I asked if I could have some follicles from my head transplanted to my leg, and the reason that I did this, I wanted to demonstrate donor dominance, which is the principle that gives us the hair transplant. In other words, you could take hair from the sides and the back where it's not sensitive to testosterone, doesn't fall out, and if you take hair from there and put it up here, it won't fall out. Donor dominance. You know, the donor site is the dominant. So I thought it would be interesting to take head hair and put it here so that by the time I went on book tour, I would have long, luxuriant hair flowing down my leg. Sadly, it was only one follicular unit, which had two hairs that could have grown, but didn't take, sadly. And the hair transplant surgeon was kind of skeptical. He's like, the leg doesn't have a very good blood supply compared to the head. I don't think it's going to work. And I'm like, do it anyway, please. So they did that. And anyway, so I almost had an interesting replacement part on my leg. But it's, the history of hair transplantation, this guy Okuda, who really pioneered hair transplantation, he went wild. He was taking chest hair, pubic hair, armpit hair, putting it on the head hair down here. And for pubic alopecia, which is a thing I didn't realize, alopecia being baldness. But if you do take head hair and put it down here, you'll need to trim it every few months. Donor dominance, donor dominance. So, but yeah, those are, all this is original.
Well, I have to applaud the dedication to the reporting. You're writing about something and you want to see how at least some part of it, works.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Since we're here in the Library of Congress, of course, this is my first time moderating a talk here, and if he happens to watch the video, I want to give a shout out to my high school history teacher, hi, Mr. Bird, and prove I still remember something from American history class. And weirdly, the thing I remember most is that George Washington hated his dentures.
Yes.
And I don't know if this was a detail in your books, but it was in mine. But I actually learned reading your book that dentures were actually a much more common thing for young women to have. And at the time, and for many, many years after it, that the practice of having women pull out their teeth and get false teeth put in was a cosmetic practice known as matrimonial dentures.
Yeah.
And one of the themes, that's one example that I thought about in this book is, of course, bodies are universal, teeth are universal, but sometimes our expectations about what people should have or do or replace or not are seen differently through the lens of gender. And I wondered if you might want to talk a little bit about that theme, maybe with some other anecdotes from the book.
Well, matrimonial dentures, that was actually a practice that was widely done with both genders. Okay. Not as a wedding gift, that was for the bride. Let's pull out all your teeth get it all over with, give you this nice shiny white set that, sorry, is going to be about 25% as effective for chewing. And also, P.S., you're not going to never have to go back to the dentist because your bone resorbs and you're going to have to be refitted. So it was kind of a horrible thing. And but you're asking me about gender.
Thank you for the correction.
No, yeah. Let me see. Gender. Yeah, there's a chapter in the book that has to do with using a section of the colon, the intestine, to create a vagina, and that is something. It's a technique that's occasionally done for trans women. It is not the common technique. But if things go wrong with the more usual technique, that is something that you could do. But this technique dates back to the 1800s, and when you read the comments in the medical papers, one of them was the surgeons got together. They were men, and they said, well, we're not really sure. It's kind of a drastic procedure, but we feel that anything that preserves the domestic tranquility is mandatory. I was like, you might want to ask that woman. You might want to run it by her. And there was a comment, again, from a woman herself saying, I went along with it because I felt that if I didn't have a vagina, my husband would leave me. It's like, so, yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think of other examples, but.
Well, there's, if I can
you tell me what's in my book.
Yeah, no, I've just been studying, so. No, but you have, one of the other themes I thought about that you just mentioned is that there's sometimes, a tension between what the patient wants, or thinks they want, and what the surgeon wants.
Yes.
And you talk about a particular male body part, and maybe a surgeon thinks bigger is better. Maybe it's not.
Right. That, the surgeon that I spoke to is the head of the transgender surgery and health clinic at Cedars-Sinai in LA, and he was talking about how with some of the trans men who come to him, sometimes they'll say, it's just too big. I didn't order this. I can't even put it anywhere. It's, so can you make it a little smaller? And he said, and the surgeon, Maurice Garcia, was a lovely man. He said, I got the sense that some of these cis surgeons would kind of just pat themselves on the back, like, look what I built. And he actually did research, because he published a paper on how big is too big, like a guideline. So he went to Good Vibrations, and he said, let's look at the sales. Like, what's the best selling? What's the... Yeah, it's like, what is the girth that everyone is buying? And like, because apparently some surgeons don't know, and they're making it like that big around. And he also, talking about the trans women, he said, for some trans women, what's important is just, if they look down, things look wrong, and they just want that gone. They want to look how they feel. They want to look normal. And so for some of them, vulvoplasty, just making the external genitalia is fine. They're not with a partner, or they're not interested in that, or they're fine with anal sex. And so he's like, well, let's just keep it simple, because the vaginoplasty is the trickier part. But he said, other surgeons have come up to him and said, how could you not? It was kind of like that woman from like the surgeon from the 1800s. How could you not give this woman a vagina? She can't have penetrative sex. So, it was, and he just emphasized how important it is to talk to the patient. And also, similarly, with mastectomy, the option to go flat was for decades really not brought up very often. It's just assumed you're going to want to go through the multiple procedures to rebuild breasts that are, not quite the same, but will look pleasing to the men in your life. Anyway, so yes, thank you. Thank you for that prompt.
No, I think it's your book. It's so funny at times, but it's usually every time I hear myself laughing out loud, it's because you brought up this interesting tension. And in this case, really, it is that it's not always clear. There's not a single answer, like what is the right form, and these conversations between doctors and who consents to this, and how do you even bring this up, and I think as any technology, I mean, whether it's about genitalia or anything else, becomes available, like how do we have these conversations with doctors? What do we ask for? What should they ask us for? How do we check how it's going?
Yeah, and I remember I have a chapter on the stigma associated with ostomy and how do you break that down. And I went to the United Ostomy Associations of America holds a number of fundraising runs, and I went along. The public affairs person said, you should come along, and you wear an empathy bag, which I neglected to read the email closely. You're supposed to put some kind of liquid or something in it, which I just had an empty bag, and I'm like, that's not that bad. So, but I walked, I didn't run, because that's what I do. But the person that I walked with was a guy who's had Crohn's since he was a teenager, I think it was. And he talked about, and he was the president for a while of that association, and he talked about being at conferences where he would have a booth for the Ostomy Associations of America, and like surgeons would walk by and like make a face, like, ugh, and he said, I would go up to them and say, I saw what you did, shame on you. You're supposed to be someone who is counseling their patient on what's best for them. And if you talk to people who've had this procedure, their lives are so improved. They're not like chained to a bathroom. They can go out. It's incredibly liberating and freeing, and they're taking control of their lives. And you have some surgeon who's like, come on, you're a surgeon. So, yeah.
If I can, pivot a little bit to the medical, but nothing is just medical. But can I ask you, why pigs? Why is the technology around harvesting organs from other animals centered on pigs?
I'm glad you asked that question, because I had that same question. You read a lot now about xenotransplantation, which is taking pig kidneys or pig hearts from pigs that have been genetically edited so that the organ doesn't provoke this very extreme rejection. So, and I was kind of curious, why is it always pigs? Why is it always pigs? And what I discovered is that in the 40s and 50s, the Mayo Institute, or was it the Mayo Foundation, and the Hormel Institute, yeah, somebody was an institute and somebody was a foundation. Anyway, the Mayo Foundation, which is the research arm of the Mayo Clinic, and the Hormel Institute, which is the research arm of pork, they got together and did all these studies on, basically they bred smaller pigs, pigs that, because you're going to have an animal in a laboratory setting. A pig is a hog's a big animal, and it's a very noisy animal, and it's a lot. So they're
not a mouse.
It's not a mouse, exactly. So they bred them smaller. The organs were still the right size. I mean, you want the organ to be size-wise a good match. So they, the Hormel folks, they were like, we know how to breed pigs. We know how to breed them for more meat and for more fat or whatever we're doing. So we'll just reverse that and shrink them. And all of these papers that you find, there's like 3 volumes, like comparing the anatomy of the heart, and there would be cardiological papers. There was like kidney function in pigs and humans, just trying to see how much of an analog are pigs, and they were pretty good. Somebody actually described, they were saying pigs get coronary artery disease, they have heart attacks, they don't get a lot of exercise. Domestic pigs, they eat garbage. They described the pig as a caricature of an obese human. So, and once you start going down the road with an animal like a pig, and once all of that data and information has been amassed, that's kind of where people stay. So, I asked the surgeon who did the first heart xenotransplant. I said, would a goat work just as well? What about a llama? He said, give me a few $1 million to figure that out. we have all this information with pigs, so that's where we are and that's where we continue to go. Unfortunately for the pig.
So Mary, you traveled a lot for this book, going to, all around the world. Fun, actually, I should say sad fact, female eye surgeons in Mongolia make less than truck drivers. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about some of the differences, pick maybe 1 or 2 places that you traveled, in terms of like what's available to people either because the technology is further along or less far, or because there's different ideas about like what's ethical or what's right, what's culturally acceptable.
Well, I went to China for the xenotransplantation chapter, and I actually didn't go there because they're farther along or they're known for their prowess in genetically editing pigs, although they have been doing things for quite a while. I went there because the 2 companies here, eGenesis and United Therapeutics, took an initial Zoom with me and were very friendly and then ghosted me. So,
this is familiar to any reporters in the audience.
Particularly with biotech, right? It's a very closed world. It's, as a reporter, you're kind of, here's a press kit and here's a video, and this is what we're telling you, and we don't want you to ask us. But, they were very lovely until they ghosted me. So, I went to China, where the Sichuan Academy of Medical Sciences, there's a researcher who's been working with doing xenotransplantation work for about 30 years. And China, in fact, was a good setting for the chapter because in China, culturally, no one donates organs. The researcher there, Yi Wang, she said there's this feeling that your ancestors gave you these organs, this body, and it is disrespectful to do that. Also, you may need them in another lifetime. So there are reasons why. And I think also because organs there for a long time and still are coming from either death row prisoners or political prisoners, because that's how people perceive the source of organ, it doesn't, there's no sort of, it's a nice, lovely thing to do for a regular person to do. So you have that in China. And then you have places in Europe where it's an opt-out system. So if you don't do anything, it's presumed that you will be amenable to donating organs if it's a situation where they can be taken. And you have to take action to opt out, whereas here you have to take action to opt in. So there's, those are the 3 very different systems. And, here we've got still 6,000 people dying every year on the waiting list. One of the things that, in addition to the xenotransplants, it's interesting, but I think there's one person now with a kidney he's been alive 8 months, and that's the longest yet. Most of them died around 2 months. They were very sick. They had gotten organs. It was a compassionate use exemption because the organs they have to be FDA approved, and they're not yet. So there is a trial starting now. But anyway, I was going to say the other thing going on with with organ transplantation is they're looking at University of Michigan has a lab, extracorporeal life support lab, so looking at organs outside the body and how do we create them, or how do we, in this case, how do we extend the shelf life of organs that have been donated? Because if you just put them on ice, you've got 4 to 6 hours. But if you perfuse them, and there's sort of systems now where you can do that, you get up to 12 hours. But they would like to keep them going for days, weeks, long enough to bring in an echocardiogram machine, see how well they work. And if they aren't working well, maybe you could actually fix them. So you could, kind of like a refurbished computer. You could, yeah. So because now there's a cutoff, at a certain age, they're deemed too old. But there's plenty of, say this person was a marathon runner, that's a perfectly good heart. So if you made the criterion for whether it's used, if you made that, how healthy is it? So that was pretty cool work that's going on there.
Yeah. So speaking of China, several years ago, I was a reporter based in China, and one of the things that I had started reporting on was a doctor in the city of Harbin, Dr. Ren, who was working on the idea of full body transplants.
I am so excited that you know about Dr. Ren. Yeah.
It ended up that I changed jobs, so I had all this reporting for like one publication, and then it never got published. But you started to explore this idea, actually working by reporting on an Italian partner of this particular doctor. But can you, you know, I feel like in my reporting I got halfway through thinking about the practicality, the ethics, any aspects of the ethics of this. But yeah, why don't you talk about that? That's really on the edge of like, will it happen?
Sure.
Should it happen?
Sure. For my first book, I actually spent time in Cleveland with Robert White, who performed, people called it a head transplant, but it's not. It's a whole body transplant. In other words, if you've got a lot of failing organs, say your kidneys going, your liver, your heart, that's my heart right there. The idea here is that you take your head and you'd install it on a pristine new body. So you'd attach the blood supply. Unfortunately, spinal nerves can't be attached, so you'd be a beautiful, pristine body lying on a bed or propped in a wheelchair. But he actually did the several using primates, head swaps. You know, take one and put there, and I think that they lived for a few days, and there's a surgeon in Italy, Dr. Cadavers, I believe his name is, and he's quite a showman. He claimed that he had a patient lined up, that he was going to do it, that it could be done, that he could, I think he was making a claim, Dr. Ren was saying that he could reattach spinal nerves, was he saying, spinal nerves?
He said that he had done this experiment on
mice, right? No.
Mice and monkeys. He said, but it wasn't published, and he... Did
he show you, I mean, did you see any evidence of that? Because that'd be pretty big news if you could reattach spine. You'd think that that would have, you know, made its way beyond this kind of very fringe undertaking to like the incredibly much needed broad use of people with, you know, spinal cord.
I don't know that it was published in a major journal, and unfortunately I stopped following it. So I at that time he hadn't. I think it's also tricky for the science journal sometimes to weigh what they want to be associated with.
Well, I did notice
also like how do you find, because also then you have the peer review process. So it's really hard to not. There's so many ethical questions. Now science always has ethical questions, but I just feel like this is.
Well, one thing about the last paper I saw by Cadavers, it was in a journal for which he's an editor. So that makes it easier, for sure. That may have been the paper. The latest thing I saw by him was him saying that, you know, if you've got this pristine new body, it's a shame to have an old face. You know, why would you? So I think what we're going to do is just the brain. You'll take the whole head, like just kind of like, I don't know, cut the whole, here, pop the brain into the whole enchilada. That's his latest thing. And, you know, I thought about, do I want to actually go and visit this guy or try to? And I'm like, I don't think I do, partly because he also wrote, oh my God, I think I have to read you the quote. He wrote a book, Dr. Cadavers wrote a book, and where is it? No, I don't know. Oh, okay, here it is. Yes, okay. Yes, he's gotten into self-help publishing. Here's the Amazon This is the Amazon summary of Cadavers' 2013 advice book for men. This book will tell you how to exploit the needs and weaknesses of women for your benefit, how to cajole them and lure them into your web. So this is the dude, yeah.
I think I'm glad you stayed away.
Yeah, I think so too. But Dr. Wren they sounded very Jekyll and Hyde. Dr. Wren sounded a little more...
In just personality,
Yeah.
I mean, it was quite interesting, also just sort of culturally, that he was working in a large public hospital in Harbin, and he had this idea that he was pursuing. He actually had, as a young man, worked on the cutting edge of hand transplants in the US. And he had taken this idea that things are controversial, but then sort of like that's when you know you're onto something, right? And hand transplants are now quite accepted. It's difficult still to have your immune system rejected, but is not seen as like an ethical quandary.
Right.
And he then, was born in China and went back to China, but he, was continuing to work for a whole bunch of, really underprivileged people coming in from the countryside, who had all sorts of different medical issues and these huge lines, down the hospital corridors. So he, whatever one thinks of this full body transplant idea, he was also a person who was really committed to the public welfare and worked incredibly long hours to help people who brought, grandma in from 200 miles away,
He sounds like the exact
So
opposite.
it was quite, it was, again, I didn't publish on this, and I didn't fully, in my mind, figure out what I thought, but that there, when you interview so many people, people have so many different, you want to put them in a box, but they have so many different aspects of them that coexist. Some might be admirable, some might be neutral, some might be not admirable. But I would not describe him in the way that you have described the Italian doctor.
And you said that they mostly corresponded, that they didn't spend a lot of time. I'm trying to even imagine the two of them in the same room. Can't even.
Well, Mary gave me permission to ask about things that are touched on in the book, but maybe she did some reporting on it. It's not all in the book. Can I ask you about the history, the technology of uterus transplants and/or artificial wombs? Is that something that you wanted to write on? Was access the issue? What do you think? How common is it?
I was interested in having a chapter on uterus transplants because it's, to my knowledge, it's the only temporary transplant. So it's, the person, the woman, typically, and I think this may get at why they were a little squirrely with me, didn't want me to come. The person who wants to carry the child would have either a live donor, a woman who's not going to have any more children who wants to donate, or a cadaver, could be a cadaver donor. So you would install the uterus, the person would carry the baby to term, and then after the baby is born, you would remove the transplant, and that way you don't have to be on an immunosuppressive regimen for your whole life, because those are fairly toxic drugs that, leave you open to certain infections and cancers, and if you don't have to be on them, it would be great. So I thought that was fascinating. I'm not sure why one place said, well, you could, if you came here, we would have editorial control of the chapter. And I said, let me ask you, how many writers have gone along with that? She said, none. So, anyway, it's been, I think the New York Times some years back, maybe 10 years back, did a piece on it. So I'm not sure quite why they were, and someone recently asked me in a similar conversation, could you install the uterus in a man? And I don't know the answer to that, and if you could, maybe that's why they were uncomfortable with my coming there. I don't know. Maybe I don't know enough about anatomy to. I mean, obviously, it wouldn't be a vaginal birth. But I don't know, a cesarean? I don't know. Kind of an interesting question, and and that's something that I certainly would have asked them had they invited me. They did not. So
We hope they're listening now.
yeah. So that I need to go somewhere for a chapter. That's how I work. So for that reason, but I like to talk about it. Thank you for asking about it because it's very interesting. Yeah.
So I'm sure that in any audience in DC, we have some aspiring writers, journalists, so I wanted to ask a trade question.
Yeah.
Mary, you must have an incredibly strong stomach to, I mean, again, I've told you I can talk a good game, but I'm queasy when I see blood. I wish I wasn't. But yeah, how do you, what are your best tips for poker face on the job? Do you ever have a reaction and have to say, excuse me, and go throw up somewhere? Are you just the kind of person who, that's not a thing? Like, what are your tips?
I'm mostly the person where that's not a thing. I have to say that, yeah, I mean, but there was a chapter where I was watching somebody take fat from here and put it here, and there was a lot of fat being sucked. And when you suck fat, not that you do suck fat, like when you suck fat.
It's not yet a do-at-home advice machine.
When you suck fat, you get blood too, and it comes out. It looks kind of like a raspberry smoothie, And the surgeon's wife, who was also a surgeon, she had been concerned that I was going to pass out. When I saw this.
A reasonable concern.
And I was like, I don't know, it's kind of making me hungry. It's like a raspberry treat. So I'm the kind of observer in an operating room where I get too close and I touch them and then they're like, God damn it, now I have to put that special sleeve on over. Like, could you get your head out of the patient's body cavity?
I am so glad that you put that special talent of yours to use in reporting and writing this really wonderful book, Replaceable You. And with that, I think we are going to open it up to questions from the audience.
Yeah.
There are mics at the end.
The microphones are down towards the stage on either side. And we'll start with right and left, and we'll go back and forth. So we'll start with you.
Hello, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a couple examples like the matrimonial dentures where we kind of side eye it from our contemporary position. So I wondered if you could speculate on, 100 years from now or whatever, what people are going to side-eye about what we do to our bodies today.
Yeah, everything. Probably, right? I mean, I don't know, chemotherapy, radiation. Don't you feel like in 100 years people they beamed radiation at them? Right. Yeah, I feel like a lot of what we do, not to be dismissive of where we're at and what it took to get there, but just in 100 years, we'll just be in a very different place. But those are the two that come to mind. Did you have any that you're?
No, I wasn't speculating on it myself. No.
Don't you love the way I turned that right back on?
all of you beware. You have to answer your own question.
But yeah, no, I think that happens. I'm frequently flipping. I'll be wanting to look something up in the Journal of the American Medical Association from 1860, and I'll just be like, oh, wow, they were doing whoa. There's 1878, I think it was. There were 2 years where milk transfusions were all the rage. This is going to be the next big thing because blood, it would clot. It was a problem. You couldn't store it. But milk, you just bring the cow or the goat into the hospital, fresh from the teat, right into the Yeah.
That doesn't
So,
seem safe.
and that people were very, like the medical community for a
Does
couple
not
of
seem
years, and then somebody realized, well, you know what, saline kind of does the same.
Saline, yeah.
So, yeah, what will be the milk transfusion of the future, yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Right side.
Hi, Mary. I'm
Hi.
super excited to get to see you today. Like you were talking about with the hair graft and things like that, one of my favorite things about reading your work is how you put yourself on the line constantly. Personal favorite is when you ate dog food in gold.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to know what were some of your favorite and least favorite things that you've done in the name of writing good science books.
That's a good question.
Well, the dog food was right up there with least.
Yeah.
Least favorite. I have to say the ultrasound sex experiment was really, looking back, I don't know how I did that. But I knew as it was happening, and I was taking notes while my husband was, you can read the book. It's in the book. But I was taking notes thinking, well, this is really awkward, but you know what? It's going to be so fun to write it up. So that's usually the mindset that gets me through these things. Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great question. All right, next.
Hi, thanks for being here with us tonight.
Yeah.
I actually have two questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
One of them is I feel like your books really draw like a really big interest and like curiosity in science, and I was wondering if there are any books that you've read that were really inspirational for you that kind of made you curious or interested in science yourself.
Specifically science. I think, when I first began writing, I wrote for magazines for a long time, and I wrote for this magazine, Hippocrates, which changed its name several times. But they sent me for my first assignment to the Common Cold Unit in England. I'm trying to remember where it was. It's near one of those cathedrals. Anyway. But it was this facility where people, like British people, would go in and like for a holiday, they'd book themselves there, and a woman would come in and drip a virus up their nose, and then come in the morning. She was called the snot nurse, and they'd have to go into a petri dish to see if anything was, incubating and growing in their nose. And I just remember, I was so excited that this was, that I could like go there and do this and write it up, and that was kind of where. That was the moment where I thought, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. I want to have a person in a nurse's outfit drip a virus up my nose and then come in and have me snort into it. It was so, and you had a roommate, and you had to, if you went for a walk with anybody else, you had to have a string 30 feet apart, and you could go for a walk in the countryside as long as you stayed far apart. It was just fantastic.
Thank you. My second question was, I'm something of a writer myself, and I know from my experience, there's always little like tidbits and snippets and fun facts and little things that you find that you don't include in your final draft of your book. So I was wondering if you had any kind of quirky little things that you found that you didn't get to include in your final copy.
Oh, they're all footnotes. I find those things all the time, and it used to drive me crazy when I was writing for magazines. I'd be like, well, this is kind of off on a tangent, but it's really great. And they're like, no, it's off on a tangent. Doesn't go in. And I was like, well, one day I'll write books and I'll put them all in. So I'll just put them at the bottom of the page because I can't bear to leave them out. Because that's the most wonderful thing about writing, researching. You're looking for one thing, but you find 5 other things that are so interesting, and you just want to put them in. So find a way to put them in. Don't leave them out.
Thank you.
That's good advice. Next.
Hi, my question is very similar to her question, so I understand if you don't want to answer. So for any of your books, after it's completed, it's all said and done, it's published, have you ever learned a fact or a story that you just wanted to add in and you didn't know it at the time? And what was it?
Just today, looking at that exhibit, JJ was showing me all these amazing books and catalogs about prosthetics. Art Buchwald's false leg is in there. I mean, so they were, I can't name a particular one, but I knew that within those amazing books and illustrations and things, there were probably 5 or 6 things that I really wanted in my book. It happens all the time. What, you go on book tour and somebody comes up to you and, oh, did you hear about, and I'm like, no, God damn it. Like, where were you? Yeah, where were you 6 months ago? So, yeah, I can't give you an example off the top of my head. I wish I could. But yes, it happens.
That's good. Yeah.
Happens all the time. Yeah.
Okay, next.
Hi, sorry, over here.
Yeah, hi.
Thank you so much for being here and being such an inspiration. Your writing and your humor really connects to people that might not necessarily read nonfiction science. So,
yeah.
But my question is, just tagging along some other people that we're talking about, was there any instance with any of your books, you went to the interview, you're there, and you have to back out? Like, was there one instance that you said, I'm not going to do this? This is just not...
Because it was too disturbing, or any reason?
Maybe, yeah, it may be too disturbing, or perhaps, it wasn't fitting in with what you thought you wanted.
I do know that I've gone on reporting trips with I tend to have a really overactive imagination with what I think is going to be like. Okay, I'll give you an example. I pitched a story to, I think, Discover magazine, where I said, well, there's this lab where they study the ergonomics of airplane seats, and I will go be a subject. It's like, oh, it'll be this really cool lab. It's just a bunch of people sitting in airplane seats for like 8 hours. It's not interesting. Nothing happens. But my enthusiasm was such that they're like, go do it. So I did it, and it was a really uninteresting story. So this happens another time. I really wanted to go on that hurricane hunter plane that goes into the eye of the hurricane. Even though I get motion sick watching a handheld movie, I thought it would be a good idea to do this, but I couldn't. They're always, it changes day by day where the hurricane has moved. So it's very logistically hard. But there was one time where they were looking at it, not a hurricane, a different kind of weather system. I'm like, oh, okay, a different kind of weather system. So I went down to Monterey and I got on the hurricane hunter plane, and we didn't even have light turbulence. We had nothing. And also the meteorologist, he wasn't one of those scientists who is good at making things understandable for someone who knows nothing about that science. So I got off the plane and I just called my editor and said, I got nothing. Because I imagined some fabulous thing, and then sometimes it's more fabulous. Often it's more fabulous, but sometimes it's not.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, thanks for so much for coming. I only found out about this yesterday, so I'm glad I did. But has there been any topic in this book or in any of your books where you had to kind of rein it in because you're like, I really want to go down this rabbit hole, and something that you would potentially like make a sequel about just that particular subject, like just a book about that one thing that you're just like, oh no, I really want to dig deeper onto this, but I gotta like rein it in.
That happened with Stiff. I had a chapter about how historically, when people were first figuring out anatomy, they were not sure what all the bits and pieces did, and some folks would sort of speculate, like maybe the soul is here, maybe it's in the liver, maybe it's in the heart, is it in the brain? And that chapter was really interesting to me, because it's kind of a crossover of religion and science, and I decided to actually blow that out into my second book. So I did leave that material in the first book, but that's an example where I thought there's a lot more here that would be really interesting at that, trying to take scientific method and apply it to something that's normally in the realm of the spiritual. I thought was like the people who do that and the ways that they did it were fascinating. So that's an example, yeah.
Anything in this book that you want to dive into?
Oh, anything in this book? I don't think so. I have a very short attention span. Like that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next.
I was going to ask about, you've talked a little bit about your inspiration going into your writing career. You've talked about magazines that you've written for. How do you feel about what you've written? Obviously, I mean, we're all here because we really like it, but
Yeah.
how do you feel about, the style of books that you write, the things that you're inspired by?
Well, I go through a phase with every book where I really think it's the worst thing I've written and that no one's going to buy it and that it's really lame and amateur and ish. And then if I get good feedback, which I normally get some good feedback, I slowly start to feel like, oh, that wasn't that bad, that's how it usually goes. I don't ever write it and then before I turn it in, think this is just knocking it out of the park. This is like I don't ever feel. I mean,
It's a very common cycle.
Just like self-doubt, self-loathing, just all dread. All of that is what I experience before when I turn a book in. I don't have any sense of how good what I've done is. Do you know what I mean?
I do, and so does my husband. It's helpful to have someone who, when you're in that phase of like, oh my God, I've just wasted 6 months, a year of my life. I'm terrible. I'm so sorry, that they can shake you and go like, you always have this phase.
Yes. No.
And it's always about now, and then you'll have another phase, and you're like, oh yeah, right, okay.
Yeah. No, my husband goes, may I remind you?
Award
This has happened before. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks, Christina. Medicine for trans people in this country is under attack. I want to just say thank you that your book positions medicine for cis people alongside medicine for trans people. Would you consider, though, at this time where not just medicine for trans people, but science for everyone is under attack, would you consider taking maybe making your voice a little louder on this particular issue?
You mean writing a book about that?
I think an op-ed about trans medicine to be your assignment editor, but in this moment,
This is a journalist.
I'm a journalist. In this moment, this issue it's so there's so many things that we're all fighting.
No, I know.
So
Yeah.
I just want to say it really matters that you did this.
Yeah. Thank you. I will take that. Put it here. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, next.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry, a little short. I wanted to say thank you so much for reading the audiobook yourself. I really enjoyed the experience of having you tell me all these stories in my earbuds.
I don't know why I didn't do that before. I just thought you should have a professional actor do it.
You can hear your voice on the page, but actually hearing it.
Yeah. No, I'm glad that thank you. Yeah.
But my question for you was about your chapters always flow so beautifully from one to the other. Like, I'm always starting to wonder about the thing, and then you're like, speaking of, we're going to do this now. Fabulous. At what point in the process does your chapter order actually settle?
Great question. That's a great question. And I'm glad that I fooled you into thinking that there's an actual narrative flow, because it's all kind of Band-Aids and string. Hold it. No, I'm very conscious of not wanting the book to feel like 17 separate magazine pieces. I really do want one thing to kind of follow on a next or set up the next chapter as much as I can. And what that means is that the chapter order is constantly changing, which is really annoying because you have to kind of rewrite the end of that chapter or change the beginning. So there's a lot of swapping around. I write outlines, rough outlines. I have about 50 of them because they last about 2 weeks, and then I go, that makes no sense. That's got to be over here. It's a very amorphous process, constantly evolving, and it's a little maddening, but I'm used to it. Yeah. Thank you. That's a great question.
Thank you so much.
We have 2 minutes before the book signing, and I wanted to give you a chance to get to Whittle, which is right out these doors in the hallway where you came from. So we have 2 minutes and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people.
Okay, I'll talk really fast.
So you each get like 20 seconds? I don't know.
I'll talk really fast. When I do the audiobook and I say below knee amputation, if you listen to it on double speed, it's a baloney amputation.
But I think we were over here.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll parse down the question.
Okay, go.
So you're curious about a lot of subjects and write about a lot of them. Where do you find in the inspiration that it goes from, I'm super curious about this, I need to read a book about this, to I need to write a book about this?
Oh, I never read a whole book about. I'm reading like a little snippet in like a paragraph somewhere, like, oh my God, Masters and Johnson, they did this thing where they filmed inside a woman sexually responding. That's my next book, sex research. Okay. So I was like, it's often just a tiny thing that sets me off. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, go.
All right.
Lightning round.
First principles, what is you that is replaceable? And have you had any interesting development of your thinking around that, given recent developments in technology?
Wait, what was the question?
What is you?
Oh, what is
replaceable you?
Yes.
Like the boundaries of that, and has that changed for you? Maybe the answer is no.
No. Go.
All right. Yep, we still have time.
Okay.
Hi, I am speaking through a sign language interpreter, and I have a weird question for you. It seems like you have a pretty strong stomach in all of your research, and I'm wondering if you were to create one book chapter that would be a scratch and sniff. Which chapter or which book would that be?
Oh, yeah, man. I tried to convince my publisher, W.W. Norton, to do a small scratch and sniff edition of Stiff. Don't you think? Right? Right?
Okay, if we
said no.
If we could do 30 seconds,
Okay.
we could be a minute late to the book signing. So we'll go here and then here.
Neural transplants, the real deal or no?
Neural transplants? You mean like Elon Musk is
like
doing?
you, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't go there. Next.
I'm an educator. I'm in the engineering and physics field, but the first time I ever met an educator in biology, I was blown away. You guys will talk about anything.
Yes.
Anything that has to do with the human body. I was also raising children at the time, and it was important to me when I read Stiff. I was like, hey, it's just biology.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about writing for adolescents and or adolescents and their parents to convince them it's just biology? You can talk about this.
Thank you. Yes. I did a young readers edition of Packing for Mars. The zero gravity sexual intercourse chapter is not in there. But the young readers editor, I said, do you want to should we do another one? And he said, maybe Stiff. So, maybe so. Maybe we may do that. We may do that. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll have the Scratch and Sniff edition, the Young Readers edition.